Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
Disentanglement is our talk today. And the thing that I love about Universal Truth Principles is that we love to talk about freedom. So as we're in this talk, one of the things I want to invite you to consider is what entangles you. Right now in your life, is there things that entangle you? In these Universal Truth Principles, in the Western tradition, we'll talk about freedom a lot, and freedom is a state of being. It's our natural state. So Ernest Holmes, in the beginning of Science and Mind textbook, talks about breaking free from bondage. We are not meant to be in bondage. Goldsmith, in the beginning of so many of his books, is about breaking free from bondage. Anything that holds us from preventing us from knowing our absolute, pure, unlimited, unbounded, creative, loving, whole, perfect, and complete beingness binds us. So what is it that is binding you, that is entangling you? It could be many different things. It can be money. Money's doesn't entangle you, but money represents a lot of different things: power, survival, fame, importance, value. So it's not money itself, but it's what we put on it. Relationships can certainly entangle us. Family relationships, romantic relationships, work relationships, community relationships, being a citizen of this world relationships can entangle us. And entangle is this like a knot inside of us. And often we have many little knots. And in the Eastern tradition, they work through these chakras, and what they'll say is that each of these chakras represent different things, and they have their own unique knots. And the purpose of the journey is to break free, untie these knots, to untangle, to disentangle ourselves from these knots. That is the purpose of our life here, because once, in the Hindu tradition, and we're going through the Bhagavad Gita, the intention is about total freedom, and in Hinduism, there is the belief that if you don't disentangle, those very knots will draw you back to earth. So you'll never break free of the cycle of reincarnation on this earth until you completely disentangle yourself from this world. So that's as we're going through the Gita, you'll hear this over and over. We need to disentangle. So what is entangling you? And sometimes they're big knots, and sometimes they're little tiny knots. But sometimes those little tiny knots, like if you ever got a knot in your chain, jewelry chain, man, got to get the little safety pin out and pull it all apart. So you can, so even the little knots can be annoying. And how do we disentangle? Well, we have, the way New Thought, we're going to go through a whole cycle today. So New Thought starts with the idea of knowing the absolute, and by knowing the absolute, we disentangle ourselves in form. So that's really where the principles were used in a practical way in New Thought. But what they found is that you can disentangle one thing, but other things start getting tangled up, because we are a multi-dimensional universe, each and every one of us. So we have physical entanglements, we have emotional entanglements. You might heal a physical one, but still have emotional entanglements. You might have mental, cognitive entanglements. You might have energetic, and all of these are energies. And what entangles us is our identity. That we get so hooked in sometimes with our identity that it's hard to disentangle ourselves. And what's interesting is I was thinking about things that entangle us. Even things that seem helpful can entangle us. So anytime you have a path to God and you get attached to it, because it's the attachment that, the attachment is what pulls that knot tight. It's got to be this way, the knot gets tighter. When you can let go, so if you're really attached to this path to God, or this path of awakening is the right path, or these ideas are the right ideas, then you can get so attached to that you've actually created another entanglement. I thought of it with myself. A few years ago, I had some issues that came up with my 3 brothers. So I went to a therapist, and it was over a period of several months And then when I wrote them, I used in the first email to one of my brothers, I used the word trauma. I'm like, well, this was a trauma, blah, blah, blah. And after I sent that, I'm like, that was not helpful. Because the word trauma has so much stuff around it. Like, that's an entangling word. I wasn't dealing with just him and myself in this moment. I just added a whole nother layer by saying, well, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, well, it charges you. Have you ever had someone tell you, well, you caused them trauma? Doesn't that just get you more hooked in? Isn't that like a hook? Telling somebody, I mean, we have words. Even I was thinking, when we use, oh, it's all good, that can be an entanglement. If you're feeling bad, if you're concerned about what's going on, you're like, well, it's all good. Now you've just hooked somebody, like, I don't feel good, this isn't good, then you're entangled. And I'm using these as examples because I think sometimes many of us who are brought to this teaching are aware of the big entanglements. They might be kind of obvious. But it's the subtle entanglements that we use with our words and our actions. So thinking about yourself, what thoughts do I have? What words do I have? What actions do I take that create deeper entanglements for me? Like, are they helping setting me free? Am I actually being present with somebody rather than using labels and words to put on top of a challenging situation that brings in more entanglement, brings in more tightness, rather than just being present? As soon as I took that word trauma out, the conversation flowed so effortlessly, because now I didn't put this cultural thing. I mean, we're now in this huge world of trauma now. And so you use that word trauma, and it's got so much baggage, so you can't deal with things just as they are, just in that moment, what's happening. Took all that garbage away, just talked, effortless. What are the words that entangle us, the ideas that entangle us, keep us hooked in? Because the intention is to break free. And to do that, we have to be present with what's happening and not adding on labels and being fully alive to what's happening. What happened with New Thought, there was, with this, like, oh, I'm way up here, and there was a denial of the human self. So what's happened, I would say, in the last 20 years in New Thought, and including CSL, and just in the spiritual progressive world, is the recognition that we do need to do therapy. We're still human. We need to do psychological work. We need to do any type of emotional work, physical work. You get a diagnosis. You got to do the work. You got to do the things at the physical level to help heal your body from whatever is causing the entanglement. You do it on all levels. Mentally, that's what I was talking about, your thoughts or your ideas. Thoughts can either entangle us or set us free. So science of mind is very similar to cognitive therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is using your thoughts to change your life. That's what cognitive behavior therapy is. You start looking at what are the thoughts that are creating this, how can I start changing my thoughts and thinking about this differently? I have a pattern of thought. This is all cognitive behavioral therapy. Mentally doing our work, emotionally doing our work, physically, there's so much about somatic healing, there's intergenerational healing, there's cultural healing, there's bias healing. There's so much in this world that we're doing now, which is fantastic. It's wonderful, it's needed, because there's certain things that need to be handled at the human level. But everything can be a pendulum swing. The divine paradox. So I feel like in many ways we've gotten so much into the human realm, and it's just great. I celebrate that. But we forget about how powerful the transcendent realm is. So I want to talk a little bit about disentanglement in sort of the old school of ascension, of moving beyond all that is human. I love Ken Wilber has two terms. It's transcend and exclude, and transcend and include. So what's happening is we're doing all this work on the human level, which is fantastic, both individually and collectively. There's a lot of work happening. I was just reading an article by Kate Blanchett, or an interview, I don't know what it was, and she was saying, boy, that Me Too movement went really fast. It's like over already. And I was on a movie set, and there were 75 men and 10 women. It's like it doesn't really feel like in many ways what I do as an actress has really changed that much. So it takes time, and we need to keep working at it at the human level. And it's essential and it's important. But we also need to look at the ultimate power of what it. I read so much of Yogananda's interpretation of the Gita. I'm never quite sure what he's saying and the Gita is saying. So somewhere in chapter 4, Yogananda says that the only absolute cure for our relative self is moving up to the absolute. There's no other cure for our mortality. No matter what, we're always in the human realm going to be limited. And that's what you might find if you've been doing human work on the human level, therapy, generational healing. It can go on forever and ever, and it's like you feel like you never have that whole healing because you can't in the relative world. Everything is temporary, and there's always limitations. No matter how much you do, there's limitations, so we ascend. And I believe my own personal bias is that Eastern teachings can be much better at this whole ascension idea. We can do it as well, and I'll show you how. But the idea of ascension is that you include all this stuff, but you start to recognize that you're more than all this stuff. That your infinite self, the God, your soul, the soul as we talked about last time I was here, was the individualization of God as you. So it's more than your personality self. It's more than your mind and your emotions and your body. But it's not totally the absolute where you're living in the cosmic consciousness everywhere you go. You have an individualized expression of spirit as you. That we want to ascend into that identity. Because all of those other things, as much as you can do all the therapy and healing work and physical work, if you're only identified as a human self, you'll always have a very limited identity. So we want to shift into this higher and expanded identity. And cognitively really helps. That's what New Thought really brought to it. Explains in a very clear way who and what we are as a microcosm of the macrocosm, of who we are as this individualized expression of the absolute presence. In the human realm, there's always duality. We're not going to get away from it. That's what makes this world human, three-dimensional. The shadow, the good and the bad, always here. As we transcend, as we move up in consciousness, that duality becomes more and more dissolved until we're in absolute light, in absolute love, in absolute wholeness, in absolute health. There is no opposite when we move into that realm of absolute. There's not this and that. There's only one. And so we move away from the yin and the yang, which is this world, the good and the bad, as we heard Joel Goldsmith talk about, the attachment and the resistance. And all of those things are things our human self can get attached to. That's where we entangle, and we disentangle by saying, I'm more than that. I'm more than my job. I'm more than my dreams fulfilled. I'm more than my relationships. I'm more than my money, my physical, emotional, mental, energetic being. I'm more than all of that. And when we start to disentangle, we start to experience a freedom and a delight beyond what we can humanly imagine. On Thursday night, I've been thinking about it. So Thursday night I did a meditation with the Advanced Consciousness class. We're not going to do a whole meditation now, but I just want to give you a sense of a real, very quick sense of what it means to, I'm sorry, there are these squirrels that are just racing around, and one just flew through the air across the sidewalk, and I'm like, I guess we're just energy flying through the air. Sorry, I'm trying not to get distracted. I'm looking at all of you. They're entangling me. That's right, squirrel. Right. Okay. So we're going to just do it very quick, just to get a sense of how we can do this, even cognitively, to move into a higher world. And I got it from Joel Goldsmith. Oh, I do want to say this before I go into it. The way I got to this place, actually, I do want to do this, but I want to, because I think it bears explanation. When I was in a really difficult place, and this, I want to say that every one of us can break free without the help of anyone. And yes, No, and I think that's important. And I feel like if I have any gift to give, that so much of my spiritual path happened before I ever had a person teaching me, before I had anyone telling me what was true, because we can do this stuff on our own. So this is to say, I empower all of us. The divine presence is equally in all of us. We just have to have a passion to want to know it. You know, that we have to say, oh, that sounds right to me. I want to actually do this, and you start doing it. So when I was back in this difficult phase, and I had read enough in the 80s that I knew you could get pretty complicated, and finally I just had a conversation with God. I said, I just can't handle that right now. Just give me a very simple process of knowing you. That's all I want. I don't need to know all the different layers. I just want to know God. And that's when Joel Goldsmith was brought into my life. Because Joel Goldsmith is very simple. He says the same thing. If there's a million books by him, he says the same thing in every one of them. There's only one power, one presence. There's not two powers. There's only one power. And he just says that over and over. There's not God and, because and would apply something else besides God. There's only God as, but no God and. You know, he continues on in this process. And so I happened to read that book, and Ramana Maharshi does the same thing. It's only I am for 500 pages. All there is the I am. You know, the repetition, Reverend Sherry did a great job with that last week, just continuing to repeat, because when you repeat, your mind doesn't need stimulation. In fact, keeping your mind always mentally stimulated, it can keep you from going deeply, because that presence is beyond language, and if you're constantly intellectually stimulated, it doesn't allow you to slow down. And what I loved about Sherry's talk last week is she kept taking this idea of blessing and she kept repeating it, and it just gets deeper and deeper with every repetition. And so when I was reading Joel, it was just this oneness. And it was very simple. I didn't have to know all the different things, and just oneness. And from one of his, I don't know, it's either in many, I don't know which book, or he says it enough times, I just remembered it. So from this place of oneness, we're just going to just check in about how to just release our identity, ascend for a little bit. You can come right back, we'll come back to our bodies, don't worry. So just notice that you all have legs, right? Everybody has, or facsimile thereof legs. You have them, but they're not you. So just notice that you have legs. You have them, but they're not you. Your legs are not who you are. You have a body, but it's not who you are. You have arms and hands and neck and a head. You have this whole physical body. You have it, but it's not who you are. It's not who you are. You're not a body. And then we get a little bit more, can be a little bit more challenging. We have emotions. We have lots of emotions. Good emotions, bad emotions. You have them, but they're not who you are. You have a lot of deep emotions, happy and sad, good and bad, but that's not who you are. You have a lot of thoughts. Just think of how much you think all day long, how many ideas are running around in your head. You have a lot of thoughts, but you're not your thoughts. So you're this presence that has a physical body, emotional body, and a mental body, but you are not any of those things. And if you pay attention to your breath, our breath is what connects us with that energy body. So as you connect with your energy through your breath, you can feel yourself as an energy body. That right now, every being, including the planet, every sentient form has an energy body. This entire room has an energy body that is free from physical, emotional, and mental identity. And what we start to notice is you're noticing your breath and that energy body that's swirling everywhere as it moves a lot more freely. It doesn't get stuck as much. It doesn't get as trapped in these knots. It's easy to untangle things in this energy. It's just moving. Within you, within your being, is this cosmic energy flowing and moving. And then as you even notice that, you start to recognize, oh, I'm not even my breath. I'm even more than the energy that is swirling inside of me. I am beyond even that. I am a divine idea before energy, before creation, before anything has ever happened. I'm just this divine idea. I just am. I just am. And when we rest in that I amness, we've ascended into that true freedom where there is no opposite, where there is no other than this I am, where everything is perfect, whole, and complete, where there is no duality. There's only light and love and peace, the I am. And then as the I am, when we come back and return as our mind and our energy body, the breath that connects this I am with our energy body and then our mental, emotional, and physical body. And we are back here on earth. And you might notice, even from that very minute moment that we did that, it was very quick, you might feel a little bit more expanded. You might be seeing a little bit more from a greater peace, a greater stillness. There's not as much fear. There's not as much, the knots might be loosened up a little bit. You might still have them, but they might be a little bit looser, a little bit freer, because we've spent just literally less than 2 or 3 minutes in this I am presence. That is what the Gita is calling us to do. That is what the spiritual mystics of every tradition are calling us to do, is to want to know our identity as that great I am and no longer be in bondage to the identity of our energy, mental, emotional, physical body. That doesn't mean we stop living at the human world, but we become freer and freer, and it's a place of pure joy. You may wonder why people go off and live in ashrams or monasteries. Julian of Norwich, I was reading Richard Rohr's group, Center for Contemplation and Action, had a whole thing on Julian of Norwich last week, and I'm reminded that she chose, after having these spiritual experiences over a day or two, decided to become an anchorite, which means she went into a little hut that was attached to a church, and she never left it again. And they did a death ceremony, a funeral ceremony when she went in. She was dying to this world and then giving herself completely to just live in this anchorage. And she would do work with people who came to get prayers and doing her inner work. Why would anyone choose to do this? Why would anyone choose to become a hermit? Why would anyone choose to live away from the world in an ashram or a monastery? Do you know why? Because why? Intense love. That when we hit this I am, and you can do it at any time and any day, then you just have to have the desire. In doing that, we start to know a love and a light that is nothing that this world can give. It's not even comparable. So leaving the world isn't hard, because you get to see, oh, this world can't, no matter how much, I get everything that I want here. No matter I've had these dreams and I fulfill I don't know if you've heard people who fulfill their dreams and then feel empty afterwards. Like I was just listening to another athlete who man, I did all this stuff, and now I'm thinking, now what? Good things, bad things, no matter what you get humanly, the bad stuff, the good stuff, none of it compares to this divine place. And so we're being pulled, inspired, anything to say, it's not wrong to have these other desires, but let them all be subsumed by this divine desire to know the divine and to be on fire with it. That the spiritual essence is in every one of us. And most of you have had experiences of it, or you wouldn't be here. And it's being on fire with that, saying, I believe I can, through work, get to that higher state and be able to sustain it more and more in my life. That is all self-generated. You just have to decide that is something you want. And then what these spiritual teachers say is you have to even make that a priority. Because anyone who makes that a priority, it shows up. You'll start seeing the results because you're so intense. I love, one spiritual teacher said, it's not how much you pray, it's the intensity with which you pray. The intensity to want to know your transcendent self. Like you're on fire, so everything becomes about knowing that transcendent self. And it could be even little things. because, well, it seemed like a little thing. I was always afraid of nuclear war. I just grew up, my dad was afraid of nuclear. We even had our basement just in case with food stocked. And so I was aware, and I remember having this conversation with the divine. I'm like, okay, I understand that you're transcendent. I've even experienced it. I know all that, and I know it in my soul. And at the same time, I just can't get rid of this idea that a nuclear bomb is more powerful than you. I know I'm not supposed to believe that, but I can't help it. If I get killed by a nuclear bomb, I'm gone. And so I just kept asking about it. I don't even know if I was asking. I was just contemplating the fact that I really did not believe. I just was asking, are you really more powerful than a nuclear bomb? And then Julian was just a 1-year-old, I think. I had a vision dream. And in that vision dream, Jack, Julian, and I were all killed in a nuclear bomb. We go through the death process. We're on the other side of the veil. We're met by God. So we are totally fine. And in fact, it turned into a wonderful unfolding vision on the other side of the veil in another state of consciousness. And that's when I'm like, oh, nuclear bombs have no power over me. And this is where we have to go. Because when we continue to talk, so we want to know, my point is, this ascended place is real. It's happening right now. It doesn't go away. It doesn't belong to certain special people and not other special people. You don't have to do lots of rituals and, twirl your head and like that. You don't have to do anything crazy. You just do what your heart guides you to do. And you do it with intensity. You do it with this matters to me, and this really matters a lot to me. And in fact, I think I'm going to spend a lot of time focusing on it because I know there's something here that's way more real than down here. So you give that intention, and it starts to unfold. Now, we're going to go full circle now. So my main teachers, as most of you know, are Eastern teachers are Shunryu Suzuki and Yogananda, and I love St. Porphyrios. Well, he's also Eastern, but in the Christian tradition. All of them, all three of them wanted to live 100% of their life in a monastery or an ashram. They had no desire to be in this world. All of them were pulled out spiritually and say, nope, you got to come back to the world. And that's true for all of us. We're not called to be in monastic centers or live on top of a mountain or live as an anchorite attached to a church. We're called to come back into this world. We want to come back to this world and allow that, if you felt anything in that moment of stillness, to bring whenever you touch, for even if it's just a pinprick of a moment or longer, to bring that as much as we can back into this world and infuse it with all that we do. So that everything that we're doing, we have the intention that everything that we're doing is filled to overflowing with this awareness of the God consciousness. And that's where the healing starts to happen in this world. That's where this presence of separation starts to dissolve. It's not just in the ascend, that's why it's transcend and include. When you come back, now you're including everything in this expansive consciousness that you are becoming. Here's the key, though. This world is still hard. This world is a yin and yang. It's the dark and the light. I talk about Star Wars, right? I remember the first time I recognized, wait, the Jedis aren't here to just create pure light. They're here just to balance out darkness. I didn't like that. I'm like, no, we're supposed to become pure light. It's taken me a lot of time on this earth to realize, this earth is always yin and yang. We can become more and more light. But what keeps this three-dimensional world, now if this three-dimensional world ever goes to a higher state and we don't need duality, great. But in that three-dimensional world, there's always going to be the yin and yang. And so one of the things that I think can be a challenge in the spiritual journey is the expectation that I've reached these higher states and I'm going to come back and I'm going to show nothing but positive energy and only have positive experiences, and we can get thrown when difficult things happen. Physically, emotionally, mentally, culturally, nationally. We're like, well, that shouldn't be. I live in oneness. I think that very expectation causes more entanglement, causes more stuff, and we have to break free of it again because, this is one of the reasons why I recognize for me, so speaking for me personally, I've really loved and have found Shunryu Suzuki Zen very healing, and St. Porphyrios Christian monasticism very healing, and struggle sometimes with New Thought and Yogananda. Because Yogananda talks about light everywhere. We're getting rid of, in the Gita, we're getting rid of darkness, da-da-da-da. And he was always shocked when he came across darkness, and it really offended him and hurt him. And I don't think he had I don't think he was really that in joy of being in this world and doing his work. He would always say, it doesn't matter if you like the job or not, you just do your role and you do it because that's what God calls you to do. And he did it, and he did it brilliantly, and he's still doing it on the other side of the veil. But he wasn't really, he wanted to just live in an ashram and just be in that higher vibration. And I think the vibration of regular humanity threw him quite a bit. And he had to come across some difficult things. And I think sometimes in New Thought we get, oh, we should all be whole, perfect, and complete. We shouldn't have problems. Oh my gosh, and if we did, I'm a failure. That was old, I think we've evolving, but that was a very strong belief. That if you think, well, everything's God and everything is perfect in God and we're made in the image and likeness of God, we can make this world perfect. And I think that sets us up for a lot more entanglement. What I like about Zen and what I like about, they come from different places. So in this Christian tradition, there's just a lot of belief that suffering is just part of the world. So when suffering happens, it doesn't throw them. They're like, oh my gosh, I failed. I'm always amazed when I read of some of these saints recently, not in the old days, the martyr, I don't even understand that stuff, but the more recent ones, when they have physical issues, they barely even talk about it. It seems to not even register. They just stay in constant joy because they're not looking for this world. They're not identified. And they don't think it's a failure to lose their sight, to have physical problems, to have challenges. To them, that's just what this world is, and they embrace it as part of their God life. That's what Zen does. It's a non-dual teaching. So Shunryu Suzuki moved through life, and to me, he was in a place of such greater joy because he didn't have these high expectations that there's not going to be challenges. He was in Japan during World War II, the war and the nationalists. He just moved through it. Came to America, ends up with all these hippies, goes from like this really strong nationalistic Japanese to the hippies on Haight-Ashbury, which is where his Zen temple was. And it's like, whoa, that's a different, he just moved with it all. He just moved with it all. The yin and the yang, because he was in this absolute presence that accepted everything. That didn't say, oh, that's bad. We heard it from Joel. That's bad, that's good. That's what creates separation. If you want to heal that separation, just open our hearts and say, this is part of living in this world. You know the story of the woman who loses her child and is begging some wise man to help her bring the child back because she just thinks it's unfair and unconscionable. And then the Buddha says, go knock on everyone's door and find the person who hasn't suffered. She's knocking on everyone's door, and they've all gone through some really deep suffering. The disentanglement is to just say, I don't have to beat myself up for having challenges. I don't have to beat myself up. You don't have to beat yourself up. When I say, are you entangled? That's not a vehicle to say, okay, now beat yourself up for that, because that's part of this world. And I think the way to disentangle is just to see it with compassion, with love, and the wholeness we're always walking in. The absolute, every day, as much as you can, ascend, and then bring that back with this unlimited compassion for this human existence. And that's where the disentanglement happens, is not that bad things don't happen, not that you don't have knots inside of yourself. We're all going to have knots inside of ourselves, big knots, for the rest of our life. It's embracing that awareness with compassion and freedom. I'm both free from those knots, and in my human self, I'm not free, and I have infinite compassion. And when I say myself, I don't mean just me. We're saying that to ourselves. I'm free. It's not who I am. And at the same time, humanly, it is what I experience, and I have compassion. We see in the Eastern teachings, who was it? Cindy Wigglesworth saying it has two wings, freedom and compassion. That's what makes us fly. Freedom and compassion. You're utterly free. We're a place where there's no entanglements, and we have compassion for this wonderful, beautiful, deep, loving, earthly life where we have infinite compassion for ourselves and for each other. I can end there. There was just something that popped in my mind. I just found a video, and I shared it with some people. Another one of my teachers, as many of you know, is Michael Beckwith. And if you listen to him on Sunday mornings, he's very high in the expansive consciousness. He's personally, he's the most awake person I've ever been around. It's not like, maybe, no, you just start opening up to that life way beyond your body, mind, identity, that whole thing, that transcendent. He lives there a lot of his life. And he speaks from that place on a Sunday morning. So that's what I hear from him a lot. There was this video that I just found. It's recent, in the last 2 years, because I know by his hair, where he talks, and it's a very short clip, but he's talking about how there are times where he goes through deep depression. And he said there's sometimes, I don't know, he says I have to crawl to my meditation pillow because I'm so depressed. And I just think the spiritual stuff is just way too hard. I don't want to be spiritual anymore. It hurts too much. And he said, in those times, I'm feeling all of the things that I've said or hurt people, and it overwhelms me, and I can't move. And he said what he's learned is that these times of deep sadness have flown in and out of his life throughout his entire, he's going on his 40th year at Agape. And I've seen him at those darker times as well. And what amazed me at that time, because I remember the conversation we had, he was in a little struggle, and then he got up on Sunday and just, because he's both. He's not just this, and he's not just that, he's all of it. And what he said in this video is that he's learned how to, I've learned to accept over the years, this is just part of the flow. This will pass. It's going to flow through. But it's part of our spiritual journey. That it's not all whoosh, which I think sometimes we expect it to be, or just all, I'm so at peace, nothing impacts me. And so we have that. It's hard. We feel things. But we're also the transcendent. And why I read books like the Bhagavad Gita is because I feel like I've done so much work on feeling the feelings that I have to constantly read. All the books, the movies, everything is telling me that this world is real. And I have to read books that constantly remind me what I know is true, that this world is a very small part of the infinite beauty, harmony, grace, awesomeness of pure spirit that is so far beyond what this world can offer. And that's where I want to keep my attention. That's why I keep my single-eyed awareness. That's why this was called the Lighthouse. Because of that light. The single eye, keep your eye single and your whole body shall be full of light. Keep our attention on that one power and one presence. It includes everything. It includes the storms. It includes everything. But it shall not be moved. It shall not be moved. And so I invite us all, as we are on the spiritual journey, to know and be willing to transcend and know that light, that single light that is the entire cosmos and that will fill our body and our mind and our soul. And these monks who come back, like St. Porphyrius and Yogananda, actually, we'll talk about the beauty of this world because they're seeing through that divine eye. Doesn't mean they dismiss all the pain and the places where we have compassion. But always, as Michael is an example as well, always, the place that sustains us, guides us, leads us, lives as us, is that one power, that one presence that we repeat over and over and over. One. Not two, not a good power and not a bad power. One power. One power. Pure love. Let's pray. And how grateful I am to be with a community in a teaching, both CSL and New Thought, with spiritual progressive people all over this planet that have no label. To be in that consciousness, that extraordinary, vast, unlimited consciousness of one power. One power. There's no conflict in that one power. There's not one power fighting another power. There's not one power overcoming another power. There is one power that is the source of all the beauty and the harmony and the grace of all creation. Behind even that which we call dark, even those things are portals to the one power, are portals to the one light, the one love. That whether we call it good or whether we call it bad, all of it is a portal to this infinite love intelligence that is the source of our very being right here and right now. That each and every one of us is made in the image and likeness of pure light, of pure love. We may have even touched it a tiny bit today. But we know that this presence and this power is the absolute truth of who and what we are. It is the place where all healing begins and ends. That the story is never over until we are fully ensconced in this powerful, infinite, radiant light of pure spirit. Until we know that every atom, cell of our being, our emotional body, our mental body, our energy body is infused with this consciousness of oneness, infused with this awareness that this light and this love infuses every aspect of our life, our relationships, our money, our dreams, our physical body, everything is infused with oneness. Everything that we do, our to-do list is a beautiful expression of oneness. Our life at work is a beautiful expression of oneness. There's nothing that is happening in this world that is outside of this oneness, and we get to know and see and feel that and live with that single-eyed awareness, knowing that this single-eyed awareness is enough light for the entire creation of the cosmos. That this single light includes all life in all of its many dimensions and aspects. We don't need to know every little detail. We just need to know the one that is the source of our life, that is at the center of our being where there is no circumference. We are that beautiful, radiant, conscious, transcendent light. Every day, every hour, every minute, every second. And it is that light that shows up exactly how we need it in every moment. In physical healing, emotional healing, mental healing, energetic healing, in the beautiful tears of compassion and empathy, in the beautiful joy and delight of creation, in all aspects of this wonderful life is this beautiful, transcendent oneness. And we are that transcendent oneness that is infused in all aspects of our humanity. Heaven on earth, as each one of us, individually and collectively. Thank you. Thank you, divine infinite light. Thank you for the yes that is always alive and awake as all of us. Thank you for this consciousness that is healing and revealing the truth of who and what we really are. In gratitude, we just let it be now. We joyfully take our hands off of it, take our mind, emotions, and body off of it, and we just let it be because it is. It is. We are. I am. And so it is. Amen.
I walk in God in all